There, my name is Dr. Katie Saint, and this video is on how to handle conflict and how to de-escalate it so it doesn't accidentally turn into something bigger than it needs to be. So all of us are in situations sometimes where things get out of control and our anxiety rises, and so sometimes we don't respond well to each other. So if we kind of think about a plan for how to handle those situations, it makes it a lot easier to respond well. So we're going to go through stages of conflict and how we should respond at each stage. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and we will go through that. Here we go. All right. So the first stage of conflict is anxiety. So when you're in conflict with someone, you might not actually be in conflict yet. You might just see with your child or your friend or whoever you're in conflict with that there's some signs of anxiety. So they might be nervous, they might be fidgeting more, they might be tensed up, maybe they're talking less, or maybe they're talking more and really fast. So, based on what you know about that person, look for signs that maybe they're not feeling great, maybe they're not all right on the inside. So, everybody displays their signs of anxiety a little bit different. But once you get to know a person, you can kind of figure out, okay, like this is their pattern. When they're anxious, they start fidgeting, they start pacing, they start rocking or tense up. So just look for those signs. And your response is to support them, show your compassion, show you care. At this stage, if you can catch it here, you can prevent a ton of conflict. A lot of times, people have anxiety or frustration over solvable things. So, meet that person where they're at, get down to their level if they're a kid, and ask them what's wrong. Like, hey, you seem kind of tense right now. Are you okay? How can I help you? Is there anything we can do that would make you feel better? So at this point, the child or the other person hasn't really done anything wrong. You can just tell that they're not okay and not feeling well. So you want to help them and you want to meet their needs and you want to problem solve with them and try and figure out like how can we solve this? What's going on? How can I help you right now? So you want to be really compassionate in your tone of voice. You want to make them feel safe because if you come at them with like what's wrong with you or what's your problem, comments like that, even if you mean it well, is likely to escalate them to the next stage, which is defensiveness. Once you trigger somebody's defensiveness, it's really hard to have a productive conversation. So we want to have a really great tone of voice. We want to show our care and our compassion. We want to make it a safe place in this stage. That's going to prevent a lot of defensiveness. That's going to prevent it from going to the next stage or further. So next is that defensive behavior. Let's say they went from the anxiety stage to the defensive stage so quickly that you weren't able to intervene in that first stage. So what you're going to see here is they're going to kind of be more rigid in their behavior. They're not going to be flexible in their thinking. They might say rude things or have a really bad tone of voice. They might talk louder. Once somebody is in a defensive stage, you're gonna see that their behavior is really closed off, and so it's a little bit harder to work with someone in this stage. And so once you see this in somebody that you are working with, whether it's your spouse, your child, a friend, your coworker, you want to move to less conversation. Typically, if someone's feeling defensive, a debate or an argument isn't going to go well because they're on the defense. They're not in a mode of, hey, let's repair this relationship, let's have a productive conversation. They're feeling insecure. Their amygdala has been activated, and so they're in fight or flight mode. And likely they're in fight mode, which means they're gonna be defensive towards you. They're gonna be closed off because their brain is telling them they need to protect themselves. So you can make it easier on them By being direct, give them clear instructions. Um, don't use like a ton of words. Don't be really chatty. Just be really clear. Like, hey, here's your options. Giving choices really helps, and you can validate their emotions too. Like, okay, I can see you're being really upset right now, but these are your choices. Please let me know what you decide. So your tone is calm. You are in a regulated state, and it's showing in your nonverbals. This is going to be really important, and it helps a lot if you can do that. But I will admit it's very hard. A lot of times once people get to the defensive stage, it's supernatural for you to be defensive too. So you're going to want to really work on like controlling that and trying to stay in a calm and rational frame of mind. Because if you guys are both feeding off of your defensiveness, then it's going to escalate and you're both going to escalate together. So, next stage of conflict is the risk behaviors. So, hopefully, in most situations, it doesn't get this far, but sometimes it does. So, this is where somebody is at risk to hurt you or themselves. Maybe they're breaking things, maybe they are just doing something destructive. And so, this is a pretty scary stage. Once they're in this stage, they are fully in fight or flight mode. So the defensive stage and this stage, they don't have access to their prefrontal cortex, which is where they're thinking rational, where they are making good choices and thinking about their future. So one error a lot of people make is when somebody is defensive or in this at-risk behavior, they want to like rationally talk to someone and be like, hey, this is going to hurt you. This isn't going to go well for you. Just listen to my reasoning. This is why I did that. And you want to explain, and you're like, if they just understand, they'll feel better. But when you're this escalated, your brain cuts off access to your prefrontal cortex. You're not able to use it. You're just in survival mode. And so those rational conversations are not going to work. So we want to decrease conversation. We want to decrease verbals. We just want to assess for safety here. So scan the environment. Look for weapons. Like if you guys look around my office, look at how many weapons are in here. If somebody was in a really escalated state, they could throw all my books at me. They could throw the decorations on my wall. I have a coffee mug that would really hurt if it got thrown at my head. So I would want to get somebody out of my office because there are way too many potential weapons in here if they were that escalated, right? So you want to scan the environment and look for, okay, this person is really dysregulated. They are trying to hurt. So where can I guide them that's going to be safer? Or like scanning the environment, what if I had a toddler in here, right? I would need to get that toddler out of here and get that toddler to a safe place. So when we're in the risk stage, we really need to assess for safety and do whatever we can to minimize risk and minimize harm. So definitely take threats seriously. If they say they're going to stab you with a fork, believe them and do what you can to ensure safety. So remember that you being calm and rational, even though it's incredibly hard at this stage, is important because the more dysregulated you are, the more dysregulated they're going to be. So there's something called co-regulation, and this is something that impacts us all. So if I'm meeting with you and you're really anxious, I might start to feel anxious too. That's just a natural thing that humans do. We kind of feel each other's emotions and then mirror it. We have mirror neurons in our brain that kind of helps this happen. But it works in reverse too. So let's say I meet with you, I see that you're anxious, I kind of feel it, but then I take a few deep breaths and kind of ground myself and stay calm. Well, then you maybe will be calmer because your mirror neurons are reflecting what I'm feeling. And so then it'll help you calm down too. So our regulation impacts other people. So that's important to keep in mind in all of these stages. If we can help ourselves be in a good place, this is going to just help everybody regulate. I remember when my children were infants and they would just cry and I couldn't console them. I would start to get anxious myself. And I remember that back then I knew this information and I was trying to apply it, but it was so hard for me to calm myself. So I would just sing to my child, I'm happy and calm, I'm happy and calm, until I actually did calm down. I needed to actively work on regulating myself because I felt so bad that I couldn't console my infant at that time. So some of us are really going to have to work at getting ourselves to be calm, because when somebody's that escalated, it's not easy. So it's definitely a skill to practice and work at, and hopefully you'll just get better and better with it at time. So, so then let's say you get through the violent stage, you assess safety, you did everything you could to protect things, you blocked, you removed things, you did whatever you could to make the situation safe. Now you see that that person is kind of calming down. You see maybe they start crying now, or maybe they're like huddled in the corner, just like their heads down, they're rocking, like you see signs that they're no longer going to hurt you. They're no longer going to hurt themselves. Like the high peak of the conflict is over. So what you want to do then is approach them and be mindful of what kind of space they might need at that time. Depending on the person, sitting close to them could help, or sitting close to them could re-escalate them. So just be aware of that and what that person appreciates, benefits from, that type of thing. And then from there, like, connect with them. What happened just there is traumatic to them too. It was hard for you, it was hard for them. And so you both need time to debrief and talk through that and just kind of figure out what happened. And so, um, what I want you to do in this stage is try and rebuild the relationship. Make a plan for next time. Talk about, like, okay, if this happens again, like, what can we do? What do you think triggered you? Why did you feel so unsafe that you felt the need to be violent? What were you defending? Like, really break that down so you can figure out what happens. Um, if you some for some people, this conversation might not be able to happen immediately after it. You might need to wait 20 minutes, an hour, but it's really critical that you don't skip this stage, because without it, the relationship is going to be broken. There's going to be some damage that happens, and anxiety could build from this if there's no repair. So definitely take time to do this stage. It's really critical. And hopefully this stage is going to help you prevent it from happening again. All right, so those are the stages of a conflict. Hopefully, if you have the opportunity to do the most work in the beginning stage, you can prevent all the future stages. Sometimes we don't get that opportunity. So I'm just going to quick review. In the anxiety stage, show your compassion, meet their needs, figure out what they're anxious about, see if you can problem solve a situation. Defensive stage, give choices, be direct, be clear, help them know the expectations with as few words as possible. Risk stage, your main concern is just safety here. And you are assessing safety, you are looking for risk, and you're doing whatever you can to just make the situation as safe as possible. And then the last stage is just reconnecting with them. So just remember, do everything you can to stay calm, have a nice tone of voice, all of those things. I know that's super, super hard, but it is really important to help de-escalate people. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. All right. Well, I hope this video was helpful for you in just kind of processing how to respond to conflict. It is so natural that when somebody's angry at you, that your anxiety skyrockets, and you maybe go through some of these stages too. So the more work we can do on ourselves to stay calm in these high conflict situations, the better they're going to go. But this is a hard task for all of us. So, best of luck to you as you work through these situations, and I hope this was helpful.